Hi, this is Bryan too in Warsaw, Poland. I want to continue talking about a few things. Basic defenses to this technology. When I talk about basic defenses, there are ways to defend yourself from the mind control. Now, there's really no way to defend yourself from the directed energy attacks. If they want to attack you, they can do that. Okay? But this is not about zapping people with directed energy. They know how to zap people with directed energy. This is all this torture, assassination, all the training, research, and development behind all of this is for the purposes of mind control. It's about mind control. It's not about zapping people with directed energy. You know, people need to understand they're using trauma to depattern your mind, to clear the neural pathways of your brain, so your brain can be repatterned with this fabricated and falsified stream of electromagnetic frequency waves. That's what's happening to you. So what are some defenses? Well, for example, you can multitask. Multitasking is, thinking and doing multiple things at one time. Okay, so such as whistle while you work, singing and dancing, etc. Okay, writing a letter while listening to music, reading a book while listening to music, engaging in outdoor activities while you listen to music, etc. Okay, it's called multitasking. It's creating multiple threads of thought. Okay, so when you create multiple threads of thought, there's no coherent pattern for them to download and integrate back into R&M data. They can't make sense of what they see on the screen. Remember, this is a supercomputer. Okay, so this is about establishing single coherent patterns of thought, which can be remotely measured and integrated back into R&M data. Well, they can't remotely measure what they can't see on their screen. Okay, so multitasking is very effective. And now there are other ways to defeat the technology, but we'll talk about that in just a second. But you need to understand that multitasking is very effective. You're not actually thinking and doing multiple things at one time. What you're doing is you're toggling back and forth between thoughts, and it's creating these additional electromagnetic energy inside the neural pathways of your brain. So there are multiple patterns, and they can't make sense of what they see on their screen. It's called multitasking. Another very effective defense to this technology is called spontaneity, being spontaneous. Everything they do is about patterns, about for example, mind control is based on decoding thought patterns. Organized stalking is based on choice reference patterns, etc., etc. Everything's based upon their ability to identify and develop coherent patterns of thought. Pattern recognition, that's what this is about. Okay? So being spontaneous, now I'm not talking about short-term planning. I'm talking about not planning at all. I'm talking about speed of thought actions in your life. Okay? So spontaneity is very effective to defeat this technology because they have to build patterns of your behavior and make sure that those patterns of your behavior are consistent with the electromagnetic emissions, the synaptic responses that they can see on their screen. That's how they build a cognitive model. Well, what they have to do in order to be able to achieve that is predict your choices in advance. Remote neural manipulation is based upon their ability to predict and influence your reference choices during thought composition. I've said this before. That's it. The system, the supercomputer, whether you know it or not, is constantly predicting your choices. So, you need to understand spontaneity is very effective because when you think of something, as you're formulating your thoughts and preparing to act, that's called thought composition. Thought composition, okay? As you're formulating your thoughts and you're preparing to act, okay, the supercomputer is predicting those choices in advance. Why? So they can verify their technology. So you think about going to the grocery store, the supercomputer automatically reads that pattern of thoughts. It's okay, she's going to the grocery store. Okay, or he's going to the grocery store. Okay, so you get in your car and you're headed to the grocery store. Well, guess what? They're organized stalkers behind you in a car, in a marker vehicle. They got their organized stalkers in front of you in a cheating trigger vehicle. Okay, they've got outlier vehicles and advanced vehicles, a command vehicle behind them. They've got people waiting for you at the grocery store, at the entrance of that grocery store, and guess what? They got somebody on the peanut butter aisle, which is what you thought about, which is the reason why you went to the grocery store to begin with. Why? To verify their technology. It's called verification. Without verification, mind control cannot exist. They have to verify the technology is working properly. If it's not working properly, they have to start all over again. They have to go back and increase or decrease the phase, frequency, and amplitude of the stream of electromagnetic low frequency waves that they're targeting your brain with. So spontaneity disrupts all that because it disrupts the pattern. If the pattern was you going to the grocery store so they could verify their technology, and on your way to the grocery store, you suddenly pass the bank and say, I'm going to turn into that bank. You didn't think about it beforehand, you just suddenly did it. Speed of thought. You know, you didn't plan to go to the bank, you planned to go to the grocery store, but you were spontaneous. As you passed the bank, you swerved into the bank. Okay? They couldn't predict that. You just defeated their technology. It doesn't matter that they know you're being spontaneous. You know that and they know that. What matters is the pattern is still broken. The pattern they were trying to develop and identify and remotely measure and integrate back into R&M data for the purpose of building a cognitive model of your brain just failed. They got to start all over with a new verification routine. Spontaneity. Not just verification, not just multitasking, okay? Spontaneity is very effective. Be spontaneous every day, okay? Not short-term planning. I'm talking about not planning at all. Speed of thought, actions in your life. It's called spontaneity. It breaks the patterns they're trying to build each day to develop coherent patterns which they can use to build a cognitive model of your brain the supercomputer can use, okay? Another thing that's very effective is called redirection. Quenching. Let's talk about quenching. Quenching is basically being able to read active memory. I've talked about this before in my other videos, but I've never actually called it what it is. It's called quenching. Okay? And quenching is the ability of the targeted individual and mind control victim to test and validate memory in order to determine whether these powerful emotions and thoughts that she's having over and over again are real or artificial. In other words, you know, where do these powerful emotions and thoughts come from? Why am I suddenly in a rage all the time? Why am I continuously thinking about this thing over and over and over again every 3 minutes, every 2 minutes, every minute, every 30 seconds? That's a pattern. That's not you, that's them. That's not. So you begin to test and validate memory. That's called reading active memory. Okay? And then once you're able to test and validate memory, you're able to determine what your normal memory and thought process is from their artificial impulse injections, motivational impulses, okay? From their remote neural tags. It's called quenching, learning to read active memory. Okay, this technology is designed to target your active memory. When I say active memory, I mean short-term memory. Short-term memory is anything less than 30 seconds. Long-term memory is anything longer than 30 seconds. This technology is designed to target and manipulate your short-term memory. So, in order to pitch you in some type of action or access sequence for the purposes of verification, training, research, and development, etc. Okay, so that's what I'm talking about when I say quenching. Okay, you're able to quench the for example, now they don't force you to do anything. They can, but that's not how this technology is designed to work. The technology is designed to mimic your normal cognitive behavior, okay? Your normal memory and thought process, to fool you, to make you become dependent upon the system. You become dependent upon the R&M system, the remote neural monitoring manipulation system, that supercomputer's output. That stream of electromagnetic frequency waves are constantly targeting your brain with to manipulate your memory and thought process. That's the system's output. You become dependent upon that. Okay? But if you're able to read active memory, you're able to differentiate, to discern, to ascertain between what's real and what's artificial. How? By looking for patterns. If you're having the same obsessive and compulsive thoughts over and over again, every 30 seconds, every 60 seconds, every couple of minutes, etc., okay, that's not you, that's them. That's a supercomputer attacking you. Okay, that's what I'm talking about when I say remote neural attacks. Okay, so quenching is basically one thing. Quenching is learning to test and validate memory, your short-term memory, in order to look for patterns. Because you can identify their remote neural attacks. Their attacks on your remember this is fabricated and falsified stream of energy. So fabricated. This is all anything. Whenever you think of something, it becomes memory. Okay, the moment you think of it, it becomes a memory. Okay? Now, their short-term memory, long-term memory, and anything less than 30 seconds is your short-term memory. That's what they're targeting in order to manipulate your behavior, your composition habits, to obtain direct behavioral control over you. So, quenching, very effective. Just learn to test and validate memory. Look for patterns. If you keep thinking about something over and over, like going to the refrigerator and getting a Coke every 30 seconds, every 60 seconds, that's not you, that's them. That's a supercomputer. They don't care anything about Coca-Cola, okay? They care about their technology. And they use the organized stalking in order to verify that technology, engaging in street theater, engaging in situational and conversational scenarios that are based on events or topics that will capture your attention. So it's called quenching, learning to read active memory. Very effective defense to this technology. Another defense to this technology is called redirection. And redirection is basically establishing a working reference Okay, and then reverting back to that working reference with each remote neural attack. When I say, what I mean is, your working reference, this is trauma-based mind control. So this is not about the betterment of your life. This is about traumatizing you to such an extent that you can no longer function and survive. You begin to psychologically shut down. Okay, to so traumatize you that you can no longer function. Okay, and you begin to shut down. Okay, well, a working reference is simply anything in life that makes you extremely happy. So a person or a thing or an object that makes you extremely happy. For me, it's Jesus. I'm a Christian. I love Jesus more than anything. He's what makes me the most happy, of all. There are other things, but nothing makes me more happy than thinking about Jesus. He is my working reference. So every time I'm attacked with these artificial memories, okay, trying to pitch me in some type of action or access sequence to do something or say something for the purposes of verification, etc., whenever those attacks come, I just redirect back to my working reference. Jesus, 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 Jesus. Well, if you're an atheist, that may not work for you. It may be some other, positive recognition in your life, such as, for example, a first love or the birth of a first child, etc. It's called establishing a working reference. It's called redirection. And you're simply redirecting away from their remote neural attacks and impulse injections back to your original thoughts. Very effective. Now, if you can begin to do that, if you can begin to learn multitasking, spontaneity, quenching, and redirection, if you can begin to learn to read active memory, okay, and you can begin to defeat their technology, okay. Now it's still gonna, you're still gonna have the ringing in your ears and the pulsating pain in your head, constantly radiating your brain, okay. Have it every day, 24 hours a day, okay. And it will still hinder performance considerably, especially if you have a job. And a lot of targeted individuals are unemployed because they can't have a job with this technology. They go after you financially to prevent you from being able to fight back, to flee, like I'm doing around the world, okay, etc. So, but it will still hinder performance. But you can at least begin to defeat their technology and reclaim your life. Okay, and there are other methods. Perhaps the most important method of all, one of the two important methods of all is listening to pleasing music. Listening to pleasing music involves the creation of a dominant external stimulus. Now, there are other ways to create a dominant external stimulus, but the supercomputer, whether you realize it or not, this remote neural monitoring system, it is constantly using visual and verbal entrainments on you at the subliminal level to keep your brain entrained to its system. Brain entrainment is not a one-time event. It's not a one-step event. It's a continuous process daily. The supercomputer must keep your brain entrained to the system, and it's using at the subliminal level, visual entrainment such as short videos, two-dimensional images, etc. It's using verbal entrainments, neurolinguistic programming, etc. And most of that is subliminally, are subliminal attacks, so you can't hear it or see it. Sometimes you close your eyes, you can see it, but you may see, human faces or biomorphic faces staring back at you, etc. Okay, those are visual entrainments. Sometimes you can hear the synthetic telepathy, the chatterbox that they're using, the special automated language AI software program that's constantly, talking to your brain, maintaining a conversation with your brain at the subliminal level. That's called brain entrainment, where you create a dominant external stimulus. And one of the best dominant external stimulus is listening to pleasing music. Pleasing music becomes the dominant external stimulus by changing the focus of attention away from the supercomputer to that pleasing music, to that dominant external stimulus. Okay? The supercomputer, remember, this RNM system is designed to lock on to your emotional state. Remote neural monitoring is not possible when brain entrainment is broken with their system. And creating a dominant external stimulus breaks brain entrainment. Okay? Because the dominant external stimulus, the brain has a tendency to align itself with any dominant external stimulus, and the brain aligning itself with any dominant external stimulus is called brain entrainment. Well, the pleasing music becomes the dominant external stimulus and breaks brain entrainment because it entrains the brain away from the supercomputer, the visual and verbal entrainments, to the music, shifts the focus of attention. It breaks the ability of the supercomputer to lock onto the emotional state of the victim, okay, to read the thoughts of the victim in real time. So while they can still attack you with directed energy, etc., V2K and so forth, mind control is no longer possible. So they'll use trauma and other means to stop you from doing that, sabotage of your equipment, etc. Listening to pleasing music, very effective. It's a form of multitasking, extremely effective. We'll talk about more methods later. This is Bryan Warsaw, Poland, December 1st, 2016.